Thank you, everyone, for checking out ICMI 2021. We have a newcomer here today, Dr. Stacy Friedman. This is her first ICMI. As you saw in the last video, her interview, I met her through Facebook. She has a group about men's sexuality and their health. And she is an awesome, awesome person, very easy to talk to. And she also has a business helping couples and singles, men and women, understand their sexuality more. How are you doing today, Stacy?
I'm doing good, and I'm ready to talk sex.
Yay, let's talk sex.
No, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate being invited to these types of Zooms or podcasts or whatever that may call it, because education is so important, and just having someone to talk to that you may not have in your life is also very helpful for so many people. So thank you.
And as always, send in questions to us. This is an opportunity to talk to someone such as Stacy, who has expertise in this area. And it's not something like, hey, she likes sex, so she talked about it. No, she's actually studied a lot and talked to a lot of people. So use this opportunity to really ask her some heart-pounding questions.
Someone said that the website link under the profile is dead, so I don't know what that means.
Well, when we look in Hoover, it looks like Facebook.com's men's sex and empowerment.
Facebook.com/groups/
Yeah, I clicked on it and I see it on Facebook. So
okay.
Unless it's the drstacyfriedman.com, which, oh, okay. I know what the problem is there. We'll go in and fix it. I think it's linked to the ICMI website. So thank you for bringing that up to us. We'll go into her profile and make sure that that goes to her private website. So, but we'll get started with a question from Douglas Wallace. Okay. And he says, you say that there's only a small portion of women who can have a vaginal orgasm. Is there any way a woman can learn or be conditioned to orgasm from a screw?
From a screw? Yes, there is possibility to learn. That is a good question, because it is kind of a sad number, unfortunately, that only 20 to 25% of women can actually have a vaginal orgasm. But there are so many factors that it does make it difficult to learn, because a lot of times women are more in their heads and they're not as focused on, the visual, where sometimes men might be more visual and maybe connect more that way. But if a woman can get a little bit more in the moment, that would be one of the first things. Another way they can learn is by lifting your pelvis up. So for women that cannot have an orgasm through sex, by lifting the pelvis up, the penetration can help hit the G-spot inside. So that might be like a liberator pillow or just a couple pillows underneath. That could be helpful. Also, the fact that most women have orgasms through clitoral contact, the important thing is finding a way for when the male partner is, let's say, this is my vagina, and this is the clitoris, if you guys can see this. When you're going in, instead of just going in like this, try to go in at a little bit of an angle to rub on the clitoral area, or have some type of, instead of just going straight in and out, have a little bit of a grind to help rub the clitoris. So if the pelvis is lifted a little and you're doing that grind and you're hitting the clitoris, that could really, really help a woman have an orgasm while you're having sex.
Well, I will say that one of my favorite positions, and depends on the woman I'm with, a form of missionary is when I put my arms under her waist and lift her up a little bit. And I enjoy that feeling right there when I'm penetrating her. It feels like I'm just getting in there just right. But I
Right.
imagine it also helps stimulate her a lot more.
Right, because you're probably a little bit closer, you have a little bit more pressure right on the right spots. So it's kind of the same idea as lifting with pillows. By putting your arms up, you're kind of pulling the pelvis and getting that connection there too. Now, just because women do not have an orgasm through intercourse, if you have a partner that does not make it any less than um, as far as the man's ability. Because a lot of men feel like if I'm not able to make my partner have an orgasm, something's wrong with me. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's being open to knowing that statistic and potentially even offering a toy or allowing a toy to be brought in if your partner is comfortable with that. Because you could still have sex and use a toy at the same time, and you're having an orgasm with sex. It just doesn't mean it's from the actual penis. So if you're able to kind of be open to trying different things, then you can also have a lot of fun with that. And another really good position is if you ever get a swing. You just may have to hide the hook if you have kids around. I just tell my son that it's a plant holder. But anyway, you put the swing up, and it's true. When he was younger, he asked, but now he's older and he doesn't even notice it anymore. But you put the swing up, and when you're having the woman like this and the guy standing up more, there's a lot of area. So if he is going in like this, you could touch the clit at the same time of having sex with his hand. So do it manually rather than being completely on top like this. You're more at an angle. That way you have room to touch. So that's another way that you can do it.
So this actually reminds me of a question I actually had for you. What is your opinion on the expression, everyone is responsible for their own orgasm?
I think when that I hear that expression, because what bothers me is when I'm in session and I have women saying, well, he doesn't give me an orgasm. It's not his responsibility to give you one. It's your responsibility to learn your body, to be able to express to your partner so your partner knows. Because so many times the men will ask the women, well, I ask you what you want and you don't tell me, so I don't know what you need. And then the woman's like, well, you're supposed to know because we've been together for 20 years. No, that's not how it works. The man is not a mind reader. The men have the right to ask, which sometimes they don't. So if the man can ask and say, well, let's go through this together. Let me see how I can help you. It is the person's responsibility to figure out a way. And if they have a partner and they're not able to figure it out, to be able to express to their partner how they can help. That's a good question, because it bothers me all the time when the women say that and they're like,
Thanks.
oh, well, it's he's not doing it. He's not giving me one.
Exactly. Yeah, I love your answer.
Good. But it's an important one.
Yeah, I agree. It is an important one. So Douglas Wallace asks again, you mentioned the difficulties in socialization, blaming social media for the inability to connect. I think that's exasperated by feminism messaging over how toxic men are and how men's masculinity is problematic. How does a young man overcome these troubles to be able to start healthy relationships?
Ooh, that's a big one. I do believe that there's so many different people in the world. And if you find the right person who can understand people in general, you're going to find people that don't feel that way. But I think what's important is, for me, after all the people that I've worked with and the women that have issues about men and this whole masculinity thing, is just getting to know the woman first. I think that if you're out there and you're just dating, to not assume, because there's so many people that will be their sexual selves when they get to know you, but are very hesitant at first because they don't want to be looked at a certain way. And so I think sometimes it's just taking the time to get to know the person, to see what their boundaries are. And then once you learn, then it could be no holds barred. And I'll just give you a quick example. When I got out of my marriage and I was dating, my now husband, I've been with 9 years, the best relationship of my life, and a very sexual relationship, I might add. When I first met him and he had said one or two things sexual, it didn't bother me because we were flirting, whatever. But then he got a little too raunchy. And even for me, it's very rare to offend me. I don't care about raunch, but I was looking at this as, you know what, you don't even know me and you're talking like that. Just get to know me and then I will show you where it's at, you know? So I think it's that trust that if you can build at the beginning, and then hopefully they let you in. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do about women's personalities, so it really just depends on the person that you're with, how open they are. And it didn't take me long. It took me once or twice to just tell him, you know, I appreciate if you don't use that much vulgarity until we get to know each other a little better.
So I'm going to ask you a tough question about consent. And I will preface that I 100% agree, consent all the way, make sure that you really understand what people are doing. But something I've heard in this conference was called the 30-second rapist. And what happened in this case, I forget where it was at, but basically this couple is having sex and he's about to orgasm. And she says, stop having sex just as he's about to orgasm. And he actually got convicted for this because by the state's definition, he had raped her, even though it was like kind of at that moment that he couldn't stop. Now, we later learned that she conspired with someone to make this happen, that she wanted him to go to jail for that. But this leads into a discussion about affirmative consent, especially in places like California, that states that you have to get consent every step of the way, that you cannot assume that because you start having sex, you can just have all the kind of sex you want. You can say, hey, can I touch your boob? Can I touch your vagina? Can I insert myself? What is your opinion? Because I think a lot of people don't want to do affirmative consent because it kind of takes away from the mood. But at the same time, if I'm going to get in trouble for not doing it, kind of seems like I have to do it, even if it takes away from sex.
Right. I can't, that's a crazy story because when you get to a point of no return, your body takes control. You don't have control when you get to that point of no return. You can't stop yourself in the middle of an orgasm. It's very difficult to do that. That's a crazy story. But also, I personally feel that that's like overkill when you're trying to say, can I touch your boob? Can I touch this? Can I touch that? I would be more apt to be, if I was a male and was concerned about that, to say, you know, when you're being intimate, if there's anything that you're not comfortable with, no matter where we are in our connection, to please just let me know to stop and I'll stop. But to sit there and have to ask questions as you're going through the motions sounds a little ridiculous to me. But knowing as a female, if I was with a male that I was not sure about how far I wanted to go, and we were in the middle of sex, if a woman tells you it's time to stop, you need to stop because maybe she's feeling pain. Maybe she's, you know, uncomfortable. Maybe she's eliciting a trauma response from something previously that happened. So I do understand that even if you are in the middle of sex, that if someone tells you to stop, you should stop. But I don't feel like you should be asking, can I touch your breasts? Can I kiss you here? Can I do that? I just feel that it should be more of a connection. And when someone feels like there is a boundary that's being crossed, that if they say stop, it needs to stop. That's what I feel.
Well, a quick follow-up to that is I've actually spoken to some feminist friends, and they've told me that affirmative consent is necessary to get a yes because women are afraid to say no. I've tried to argue if a woman's afraid to say no, why wouldn't she be afraid not to say yes? And have you encountered that women will do things with their male partner because they're afraid to upset them or disappoint them?
Yeah, they do. They do because they either feel they do it out of obligation. So yeah, that is a good point. But we have to empower women to be able to feel comfortable saying no. I don't feel that it should be all on the man's I don't feel it should be all the men's responsibility. I mean, when you're in a relationship and you're in a marriage, if someone says no, they should still say no, and they shouldn't get harassed for it, you know. But I don't know. I just don't see how you can have a healthy relationship when you're having to ask every single thing that you do to say yes to, other than at the very beginning having a partner just say, don't forget, if there's anything that you are uncomfortable with, let me know, and I'm not going to be upset about it. Just want to make sure you feel comfortable. So I think that, but like you said, there are people that will do things because they're afraid of disappointing or upsetting their partner. So I feel that by empowering women to feel comfortable just to say no when they really need to say no would help the men not feel so afraid to be able to have intimacy. Because there is a lot of fear on the men. They don't want to do anything wrong. They don't want to get in trouble. And it's not fair. It's not fair for all that pressure to be on them because, you're just wanting to connect with a partner.
So one thing I noticed in the talk that you and Chris had was that you wanted to break the taboos and like the hangups regarding sex, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So right. So my question is, how do we break down those stigmas of sex while keeping the mystique intact and keeping it interesting?
Good question. I just want to respond real quick to Douglas, because he had said that I've done things for my partner because I feel obligated. Hasn't every man? And I think every woman and every man do things once in a while because you do feel obligated. And once in a while, if you do something like that, I feel that you're doing something because you care about your partner, but it shouldn't be something that you feel resentful towards after. If you feel like it's going to be something that you truly just don't want to do, then you shouldn't do it. But go ahead with your question. How do you get past those taboos and still keep it interesting? I think that communication with your partner is really big, because if you have a committed partner or even a partner that you are connecting with, that what is considered taboo? If you have two people that want to do the swinging lifestyle, is that considered taboo? But for those two people that want to do it, it's not taboo. It's just something that they want to do because it excites them. So I think the mystery or the mystique or the excitement comes from the two people that want to do something that they feel comfortable with without worrying about what society thinks. I think people worry too much about what society thinks when it comes to sex. And I have a couple right now who the man really, really wants to get pegged. And if you don't know what pegged is to have a female wear a strap on and have anal sex with him. And just because you have a female doing that to you does not mean you're gay, because you're not with a man, you're with a woman. And so there is this stigma of, if a man likes anal sex, that they have to be gay. And so what happens is that here we have two people where one's consenting to, yes, I want to do this. And the wife is like, what are you, gay? And making it look like it's a taboo when it shouldn't be a taboo. So in their case, I'm trying to teach her that anything that feels pleasure between a consenting couple should be okay. So it's just educating people, I think, to help them understand what is really considered taboo and what's not.
And here I thought getting pegged was replacing your leg with a wooden staff.
You could do that too, but that might be a little more painful.
So everyone out there, feel free to ask questions. We're not going to judge you. I can understand the hesitation, but this is really a golden opportunity to talk to a sex expert. And she has great empathy for men. It's one of the things I love about her. I don't feel that it's one-sided. So really take this opportunity. We got another question from Douglas. Thank you, Douglas, for all these great questions. I have often felt that a woman's vaginal entrance is not in exactly the same place. obviously it's always between her legs. Some seems more comfortable in doggy, some lifted on pillows, etc. Am I right, or is this a load of nonsense?
You're 100% right. Obviously the same thing with a penis. It's between the legs, but you're going to have different shaped penises, different shaped balls, different shaped, one person's butthole might be a little bit higher or lower. Women's bodies are shaped all differently. Same thing with their vulvas, with, the lips and everything like that. Some are going to be tight, some are going to be loose like salami. You don't know. But the women's opening, some might be a little bit more closer to the anus, and some might be a little higher. And it's the same thing with the clitoris. That's another reason why some women don't have orgasms as easily, because there might be more of a space between the entry and the clitoris, or sometimes if it's a little closer, they're going to have better contact. So you are not crazy. Yes, there are differences in the size of the holes, the tightness of the holes, the ability of the woman to know how to use her Kegels, where they tighten, because there's, if some people feel that their hole is too loose, they can use the Kegels and tighten. So yes, you are not crazy. There is differences. Douglas wants to know if he can ask some anonymous questions. Possible to ask anonymous questions.
Actually, I think he's telling everybody that, if you're too shy to get your name out, you can ask him anonymously. So
I can have them maybe text me, and I just won't say the name, or text you guys or something.
Oh no, there's a function in here. If you check a box, you can be anonymous, so
okay.
No one can see what you say.
Yeah. This is our TMI hour. So, right. So, kind of following off on what I said about the taboos, one thing I thought was interesting, even based on my own experience growing up, is that the more the taboos are there, the more irresistible it kind of gets. So I see that we're in this kind of ironic situation where, the taboos we're trying to get rid of are the ones that kind of help make that magnetism that much more exciting. And that's kind of what I was referring to in terms of the mystique. What are your thoughts on that?
So basically saying that because it's taboo, it makes it more exciting for you and a partner. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, I think that people like the idea of doing something that's a little more naughty, that people don't look as the typical vanilla stuff. So whatever, that's why when I work with people and they're doing more vanilla type sex, when I say vanilla, that just means the typical missionary, everyday sex. When you do something that's a little out of your box, that might be considered taboo for you. So those are the things that I try to get people to look into when they come to me and they want to spice things up. I say, what have you not done? Have you ever used handcuffs? Have you ever used blindfolds? Have you ever got a swing? Have you ever gone to a sex club? These types of things. Oh, no, I haven't. Would you be open to doing that? Oh, well, I don't know. That might look, bad upon, people might look bad upon. That's what you got to do then. Exactly. You got to go out of the box a little bit to be able to, get that excitement going in your relationship.
One of my favorite conversations I had when I was in the BDSM community was someone's like, it's so funny that you love vanilla so much because you're anything but. And I'm like, well, vanilla used to be an exotic spice. And it's funny now we use it to describe something plain and ordinary.
No, it's true. It's true. And there's just so much that you can do with that plain and ordinary too. Just because someone likes vanilla doesn't mean that they're not having great sex, because they can have that connection. They could have some, of that little bit more intensity with their partner, but yet still just have regular vanilla missionary sex. So I don't want to take anything away from that, because that could still be really, really good as long as both people are in it and enjoying it.
I love missionary. I love seeing the boobs bounce up and down. So, new question from Elaine. He says, contraception allows to have sex fun without risking insemination. Have we, on the other hand, lost something in the relationship on the sexes with having contraception?
Lost something on the sexes. I'm not really sure exactly what that means, but I know that there are people that when they have to use, let's say, condoms, it does affect their sexuality and their intimacy because they have to kind of stop and prepare and plan ahead. So I'm not sure if that's kind of what he's asking. What do you guys think? Is that kind of what you
I
think?
think what he's asking is like, wearing a condom takes away from the connection of the penis and vagina. There's now this barrier that's
Right.
between them. And do you feel that that creates kind of a loss of connection
Okay.
during intimacy?
Okay. Yeah, I it doesn't have to. I mean, it has definitely some loss of sensation, even for the woman. You know, it's not just the man that feels that loss of sensation, it's the woman too. But they do have, like, you know, some fun looking condoms and things that have things sticking out of it and everything like that. But you're just looking at the connection as being penis and vagina sex. And that's the problem, is that so many people are focused so much on the penis and vagina sex as connection when there's so much more involved. And that could be 5 minutes of the time, where there could be another 25, 30 minutes of exploring the body and doing other things. So do I feel it can keep you disconnected? No. But do I feel that it is different in the feelings? Yes. But I know it's a little bit more difficult sometimes for women to have to do birth control, because a lot of times it's hormonal. So it does affect hormones. It does affect sex drive. It can produce pain. I personally had to have a hysterectomy just because of birth control that was supposedly permanent. So it caused me a major, major surgery when someone could easily get their vasectomy. But if you're, you know, obviously not at that stage where you want permanent birth control, you do what you can when it comes to the sex. Keep the eye contact, keep the communication, focus on exploring the rest of the body and finding other fun ways to bring about orgasm. And I think that the connection could still be there.
And remember, you can't get pregnant in the ass.
No, you cannot.
Well, I actually ended up interpreting Elaine's question a bit differently. I wonder if he meant that risk of conception, does that affect the excitement in any way? And I see here Elaine's got a follow up. He says, I mean more something like, without contraception, would we pair, get intimate differently?
Without contraception, what? I'm sorry.
Would we pair or get intimate differently?
Without contraception. I mean, if you're trying not to get your partner pregnant and they are not on birth control, they do have the method where you can, if depending on how regular they are, you could still have sex without birth control. If you know that, let's say, the person's on a 28 to 30 day cycle, and you do it around right after their period, you don't want to do it between the days of 11 and 16. Just so you know, if you're in a relationship, 11 through 16 could be, you know, contraceptive time. But you don't always have to wear the condom if you know their cycle. I still think that you can still connect. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question right, but yeah, I don't think that it's going to be any different, you know, whether you use it or not, other than just how sometimes it feels. Am I answering it right? I'm not.
Okay, so Elaine, if you could just kind of write us a little bit of a paragraph of what you mean specifically, because he says no. Because we're having a little bit of difficulty understanding, and maybe there's a little bit of a language barrier, so give us some more details. But we do have an anonymous question.
Okay.
I think we have found the ultimate litmus test for sexual assault law. If a woman is coerced into using a strap-on with a man, but does not give affirmative consent, can she claim rape? If a man is coerced in letting a woman use a strap-on in him, can he claim rape?
I mean, these are a lot of legal questions. I don't it's a little tricky to answer these with consent. Coercion is illegal. It should be illegal either way, if you're being coerced. But I kind of hesitate to answer some of that just because I don't have the legal background to really get into that type of detail. But consent, and when you're asking, and it's just something that you have to agree to. No one's gonna say no to having something in the backside and then have it put in there and then not say it's rape, whether it's a male or female. Does that make sense? I just don't know. It's kind of a hard question to answer.
And just to put it out there for people, she's not a legal expert, and it just really comes down to consent is consent.
Right.
There is a lot of these questions that are important to ask, but they
Mhm.
would be more for people who better understand the law. She just understands relationship dynamics and sexuality itself. So I just want to put that out there for everyone.
Yeah. Yes is yes and no is no. And if there's any question, then definitely get a lawyer and and make sure that you're safe.
Right. So to switch things up here, I got a question. Another one of my questions: why is the male anatomy so? Why do men think it's so generally maligned and not desired to be seen? Why do men feel like? Why are men made to feel like nobody wants to see me? Because I'm a man or something.
I don't understand. The penis is a beautiful thing. I just don't understand. But I think it comes down to consent, because so many people, I can't tell you. I think it's a beautiful thing when I want to see it and when I ask to see it. And the amount of DMs and the amount of messages and things that I get from people that I did not ask for, it's rude. It's rude, it's disrespectful. And the difference is where a lot of men will say, well, I would love if a woman would just send me a vagina pic. I think that it just comes down to, it's a part of the body, and women look at those parts of the bodies and appreciate it more when it's someone that they care about, where men are more visual. So they see things and they are attracted to the female form, where a lot of women, if they're looking at it and they're searching, they're gonna be like, oh, that's a nice dick pic or whatever. But if it's sent to you by someone that you don't know, that you haven't spoken to, that you're not attracted to, it's just very degrading. It's wrong. But I think that there's a lot of women who really, really appreciate those pictures when they have a partner that they're sending it to, or if they're searching for and they're looking for penis pictures, because it's not connected to someone who is it's almost like someone you're walking down the street and someone just flashes you and says, here, take a look at my dick. It's invasive.
So a study I did a number of years ago wasn't really an official study, just something I took upon myself. A friend at the time did a post where they asked men to post pictures of themselves, just an ordinary picture, nothing sexual, and then asked people to leave comments or thumbs up and what have you, and also did the same for women. And what she had found was that more people responded to women than they did to men. Now, the conclusion that was drawn at that time was, well, men are a lot more visual, so they're going to appreciate it. But I actually went through and looked at every comment and every thumbs up and what have you, and I found that more women commented on other women than they did on men, and that the majority of the compliments women got were from other women.
Probably because of that safety. Because if they felt that they would, it's, first of all, I would think, feel more safe doing that because they know that the woman is not going to take that in necessarily a sexual way. And so a lot of times men might be like, oh, you like my body? You like this? Oh, you want it? So they might feel that it's not as safe to say things like that to a man, without wondering what response they might get in return. I think that with women, I think it's more softer features, more pleasant features, but yet you could have beautiful men out there as well. So I think just in general, it's the same thing with like lesbian porn, where a lot of women appreciate more of that softer side many times, and even that vulnerable side that they can get from the men, but sometimes men are afraid to show that. So the seeing another woman is allowing them to see some of that softer side, or even possibly even that fantasy of being with another woman. So that could be why they would look at a woman more so than a man. It's
One
hard to
of my
say in general. Yeah. What's that?
Well, one of my goals in this movement is to increase the amount of compliments that men receive, because generally the only compliments we get, that I ever really get from anyone, is if I'm in a relationship with them. But outside of that, I don't really receive that many compliments. And I think that one of the ways, and I'm sure this is outside your area of expertise, but one of the ways that we might be able to reduce the rate of suicide, as males are 4 times more likely than females to commit suicide, is if men receive more positive reinforcement in society. That might boost their self-esteem. But you're right that part of the problem is that because men only receive it in relationships, they assume anytime a woman gives them a compliment, it's because they want to be in a relationship. And that's one of the challenges of, if we increase the amount of compliments, men need to understand that not every woman who compliments them wants to sleep with them.
Exactly.
And that's going to be a tough
Yeah.
challenge to do, but it is one of my goals.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge. And I'll tell you, when you said that most men will get compliments in relationships, there's a lot of relationships where men are not getting complimented. And when I'm working with couples, a man wants to feel desired just as much as a woman does, but it's not as society sees it. It's not, oh, like they're looked at as more weak when they want to just be told that they're handsome or they look good, and like, oh, what are you, a baby? And why do you need all this attention? Where I would sit there and I say, just as much as a woman wants to feel beautiful, a man wants to feel handsome and sexy. A man wants to feel that the woman can look at them and find them attractive. But what happens, the difference between men and women, is that if a man, and this happens so many times, where a woman will stop giving them compliments because any time that they tell them that they look sexy or handsome, or their body looks good, or their ass looks good, the man's like, oh, really? And goes over and starts trying to get on top of them and starts having sex. They want to be able to feel free to express, and that's kind of what you said, Chris, to be able to feel free to express a compliment or how they feel about their partner without it automatically turning on to be sexual.
So this leads to a question I actually have about male sex appeal. Now, the one thing that's always been a fascinating topic is the magnetism of someone like Elvis Presley back in his day. Like, all the girls are just going absolutely crazy. And recently, I saw an old video of the Beatles playing that song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and the girls just can't sit still. They just, they're just like screaming, like as the song is playing, just bouncing up and down, like almost losing their minds. Can you let us in on some secrets about that?
Well, I think it's all just fame, and that's the same thing with it's a sex appeal. They're wealthy, they're tough, they're cool, they're taking on the persona. I have 2 of my friends who have actually been with someone who used to be in a music band, and that was one of the things that was attracted to them. They were appreciated with everybody. They were making really good money, but then when they came home, they were a totally different person. And I had met somebody that was in a very famous band as well, and we had like this whole thing where they were playing music. There's only like 10 of us, and then he goes on stage, because at first when I was sitting there talking to him, I'm like, this guy is so unfriendly. I don't understand what everyone sees in this person. He goes on stage and he was a completely different persona. So it's that excitement, it's that, that idea of being famous, which is the sex appeal. But what happens is that when you're in a marriage, you kind of forget to look at your partner sometimes as having sex appeal. And like what Douglas said, he says men also want to be appreciated. That is 100% true. And so many times I'll tell these women, I said, men sometimes just want this animalistic attraction, like you would see at the stage. We're like, oh my God, my husband's home. Let's go jump his bones. I'm so excited to see him. But a lot of times they're not like that. And so when you were saying about like not getting getting the compliments in marriage, if you're not getting the compliments, you're not feeling appreciated, you're not feeling like your partner sexually desires you, that's where a lot of people go out of their marriage, because they're not getting that from their marriage. So I just tell them, I said, it's very easy to make a man happy. Just go suck their dick every once in a while and tell them that they look hot, okay? No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, you want to make your man feel appreciated. You want to make your partner feel sexy just as much as you would want them to do it for you. But women don't always understand the importance of it for the men, because they feel like they don't need it. They do need it. They need it just as much as the women do, if not sometimes more, because it empowers them to want to be a better husband. That's what I feel.
So a question from Land Ray. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. This is a little bit of a long one. So how do you approach trauma victims? Is there a difference in the way trauma affects men versus women? In my experience, involuntary penetration is more traumatic for women, but it seems that involuntarily forcible exposure, like being forced to strip naked at gunpoint, forced out into the streets, would be more traumatizing, relatively speaking, to a man, which was a true story. I guess that happened to him.
Well, I don't do therapy. I'm more of coaching. So as far as discussing trauma, it's not my specialty, but I feel that any type of trauma, because first of all, just even being held at gunpoint is traumatic. Being penetrated when you don't want to is traumatic. Having to be stripped down. I know one of my friends had been in a prison situation where they have to strip him down at the very beginning. He wasn't violated, but he had no choice but to strip down in front of somebody and be checked and prodded and things like that. So for him, it was a violation. Men are supposed to be seen as being strong, and sometimes it can be more traumatic when they don't have control. So I highly, highly recommend, if there is anybody that has trauma response where you've had these situations, EMDR therapy really, really helps with triggers and trauma. So it's hard to say, because people will be in one trauma situation and someone else can be in the exact same thing and not feel the same trauma. It's a very, very personal thing. So my recommendation, if you do have any trauma, to definitely get some support on that.
One thing that comes to mind right now is, so a lot of women might say they would like the big hunky man and the tall, as we know it being said, the tall, dark, and handsome and such. Mm-hmm. But do women know the impact that sort of thing has on men who may not measure up to that sort of standard? If you understand.
I understand completely. I think I understand completely. I don't think women understand a lot sometimes when it comes to how a man feels when it comes to sexuality and things that they can't necessarily control. You can't control if you're 5'5", 5'2", whatever, blonde hair, blue eyes, and you're not tall, dark, and handsome. Those things are out of control, just as the same you can't control with a woman who has small boobs or bigger boobs unless you get surgery. But what happens is that when women are very vocal about it, because some people just don't have couth, they just don't. Women and men, it's not just women, but it's women and men, and without them, when they say things like that, they don't realize that it can make you feel less than, because when women a lot of times will look at men as just being strong, and you're a man, suck it up, be a man. Like I can't stand that term. And it's funny because yesterday I had a brand new client, And she had said something. She goes, yeah, I was yelling at him yesterday, because sometimes when he had erectile issues, was getting annoyed. And I just said, come man up already, grow some balls. And I just was like, oh, you don't ever do things like that. And I literally, I said to her, I said, I'm sorry. I said, I just have to say something. Don't ever use that terminology to a man, because man up, what does that even mean? Like, is there this expectation that a man has to be up here to be worthy? And just because, it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I said to her, and the husband looked at her and he just goes, see, I told you, so he was very thankful that I said that, but I can't let that go by. So I think I veered off the question a little bit, but
that's okay. But in the men's issues sphere, man up sometimes can be processed to mean man up and just take the damage you're going to take,
right,
and
take it like a man. What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that just, it keeps men from being allowed to be vulnerable. Oh, you were talking about the whole height and that type of thing. There's just too many expectations on the members of the opposite sex many times, and women don't know the effect many times it does have on the man, because that kind of statements can cause erectile issues. Because as soon as a man feels less than, a lot of times they think with the wrong head. And that's where I have so many people that have performance anxiety issues.
Well, it surprises me how emotional and women can be, that a lot of times we hear from women groups, or just women specifically, like, all this image of beauty all around me, like these models on these tabloids or these women in porn, and no way I can measure up to that, and it just affects my self-esteem.
That
But
they
it's
wouldn't
like,
think the same.
but yet they can't understand that when it's done to men, it's pretty much the same thing.
Right. But one thing that the men can do to help is to be able to express to their partner without, and it's difficult for men to be vulnerable. And I think that that's kind of one of the things, is to be able to say, is like, when you say things like that, it affects my self-esteem. It makes me feel less than. To be able to speak to your partner and express how you're feeling, that might be able to help. Because a lot of times the men would just kind of suck it up and walk away and not tell the woman how that made them feel, because they didn't want to sound like a pussy, So that's kind of what I've heard from a lot of the men that say, well, I don't say anything because she's already thinking less of me. So if I say something like that, she's going to look at me bad. So I think that the best way to combat that would be to just try your hardest to be as open as you can and vulnerable, and expressing how it makes you feel.
And I 100% agree with that one. If you're in a situation where someone thinks less of you, I mean, yeah, when you're married, it's a little bit hard, but you need to get out of that situation. Because if someone thinks less of you, then nothing you can really say is going to change it.
Right.
But we need to establish early on in our relationships that, yes, as men, we're capable of being vulnerable. And if she cannot pass the test of, oh, poor you, or, oh, women suffer a lot more than men, get her out. I don't care how hot she looks in lingerie, kick her out of the house, because she is not worth your time. And that sounds crass, that sounds hard, but you want someone who's going to be in your corner, who wants the best for you like you want the best for them. You don't have that, then don't even try to flirt around with someone who's going to demean you.
Right. If you can express yourself, let your partner know how you're feeling, let them know that their words or their actions are making you feel uncomfortable, or less than, and they're not willing to change and work on things, there's not much you can do. And if you don't need to be sitting there being put down all the time.
Well, that's going to about do it for us today. And Stacy, I have to say, you are a gem. I'm trying to think of a purple gem to call you, but
Amethyst.
Amethyst. You're an amethyst. If you can't tell, she really loves purple. But
I just realized I was wearing a purple shirt today too. I didn't do that on purpose.
Really, that was the first thing I noticed about you, because what you said, that you love purple so much. So
yeah, and I have a purple card too, so I'm all purpleized. Purple is passion. That's what I like to say. My passion is to help you create yours. That's my tagline.
That's great. And, I really love that you came out here today. I'm so happy that I have found you through your Facebook group and that you are so willing to talk, because we need a lot more mindful women like you who do try to understand what it is that the men are going through and are willing to say to other women, your attitude
Sucks.
may be affecting him.
Absolutely.
We don't have enough women out there doing that. So I am so thankful that you are here with us today for all of this. What are some ways that people can find your stuff?
Yeah, my website, in case it doesn't work, whatever, it's just drstacyfriedman.com, and it's DrStacyFriedman, drfriedman.com. And then the Facebook group is called Men's Sexual Health and Empowerment. So I don't know if you have the link over there. It's just facebook.com/groups/men's sex and empowerment. That's the link. So if anyone has any questions, I do 15-minute complimentary consults. If you have something that is weighing on you and you want to see what kind of support I can offer, just definitely reach out. I work online all over the world.
And do you also have a product line? I see you advertise every now and then.
I do. I have on my drstacyfriedman.com page, I have over 40,000 SKUs of products, videos, games, toys, lubes, lotions, you name it. I definitely can give you a free consult to help you pick out the right products you want to have fun. And I do offer discounts. If you use the code TTT20, then you can get 20% off of any orders. And then I also have a book that you can get for free, PDF on my site, or you can get it on Amazon, and it's called Confessions and Lessons of a Sexpert. And basically it's kind of like a beginner's guide to bringing about some intimacy and better sex in the relationship.
And also a great way to get to know Stacy, that she is someone you would like to talk to.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here. Hopefully people got some good information, and if you need to reach out, you have my information.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, I thank all of the attendees today for asking us some very good questions. I know it's a little uncomfortable of a conversation, so definitely reach out to Stacy if you would like to discuss something more intimate. She, like I said, she's an amethyst. She is a gem. So thank you so much, Stacy, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. Take care. Good talking. Bye-bye.
Bye.